Hi everyone, welcome to video number 2. This is now going to be the third time I'm recording this, and this is going to work. This time is the time. So we are going to be talking today, or tonight, depending on when you're watching this, all about section 2, which is feudalism in Europe. It actually happens in 2 parts. So the first part that we're going to focus on in this video are Vikings. And then the second part, which we'll focus on in the next video, is actually on the feudal system in Europe. So I'm going to take a moment and share my screen so that way you can see the PowerPoint. There we go. I'm also going to minimize myself. You folks don't need to be distracted by me. And we can come over here and play this from the current slide. So, like I said, feudalism in Europe, this is section 2. In 2 parts. The first part, we're going to focus on the time between basically the Dark Ages going up through 1066 and the Vikings during that time. So England in the Dark Ages, remember the Dark Ages are going to be that period of time from about the mid-400s until about the mid-1000s. And for that almost 600-year period of time, we see invaders landing on English shores repeatedly. During this time, a man named Alfred the Great and his successors, those who follow him, they united England and they called it the land of the Angles. The Angles were a tribe that had invaded England, so it was the land of that tribe, the land of the Angles. In 1042, a man named King Edward the Confessor took the throne, and he ruled for about 24 years until he died in January of 1066. And when he died, he had no heir, he had no one to take his place, no son to do so. And so we see at this point this very large struggle for the throne began. Who will rule in his place? Who will be the next in line? And this leads to one last invasion. That invasion is led by an invader named William the Conqueror. William the Conqueror comes from Normandy. You may have heard of Normandy, and that is because it is a region in France. If you know much about World War II, you'll know that the D-Day invasion landed partially on the beaches of Normandy. So this is, of course, a western region in France facing England. William was King Edward's cousin. He claimed a line through family through the English crown, and he invaded England, claiming that he was the rightful heir to the throne with his Norman army. His rival, the Englishman claiming the throne, was a man named Harold Godwinson. That same year, 1066, that October, the Normans and the Saxons fought a major battle. This was a battle that changed the course of not only English history, but the history of the world. And that is the Battle of Hastings. The Normans do win this battle. It is a decisive, a very solid victory on their part. Harold, unfortunately, meets his end when an arrow is shot through his eye. After his victory, William declared all land his personal property. He said he owned it all. And this laid the foundation for a centralized government and for feudalism in England. Meanwhile, in the rest of Europe, in mainland Europe, we are seeing between 800 and 1,000 many different invasions destroying the Carolingian Dynasty. So when we talked about Charlemagne in the last video, we talked about how Charlemagne, after he dies and after he is no longer the ruler of the Holy Roman Empire, he at that point, after his death, his empire starts to be destroyed. Well, it is destroyed by invaders, primarily the Vikings. They were the most feared attackers of all, and they came from the north, Northern Europe, an area known as Scandinavia. Today, Scandinavia is going to include countries like Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. The Vikings were also known as Norsemen or Norsemen, and they worshipped warlike gods and took pride in nicknames. Viking raids were carried out at a very high speed. Warriors were heavily armored. They had helmets, they had swords, and heavy shields. They had the equipment that they needed. They would strike quickly in towns, and then they would leave. warships, and this helped them because they were able to hold some over 300 warriors. So this was a lot of people coming in to attack and to raid a town or a monastery. The prow of each of these ships, that's the front part of the ship, it swept upwards, often ending with the carved head of a sea monster. So their ship was meant to be just as scary as they were. These ships allowed the Vikings to navigate, to work their way through the fjords, and to loot inland villages and monasteries. So they weren't just relegated to the coast, they were able to move inwards as well. Fjords are long, narrow, deep inlets of the sea, so they're thin, small bodies of water that reach inward, and the Vikings were able to navigate those to get closer to other areas. But the Vikings were not just these evil warriors who attacked. They were also traders and farmers and explorers. The Vikings explored far beyond Western Europe. They went as far as Russia to their east and as far to their west as North America. In fact, Leif Erikson reached North America hundreds of years before Columbus ever did. You may, if you are a SpongeBob SquarePants fan, know about Leif Erikson Day, celebrated on October 14th, but sadly, although Leif Erikson should be celebrated, Leif Erikson Day is only celebrated in SpongeBob SquarePants world. Around 1000, the fear of Vikings began to fade in Europe. Why did this fear start to dissipate? Well, there are two main reasons. The first is because they stopped attacking so much. Vikings gradually accepted Christianity, and as they started to accept Christianity, they stopped to raid the Christian places of worship. So less raids led to less fear. Also, warming trends in Europe's climate, global warming in the early part of last century, allowed for better farming in that century in 1000, allowed for better farming in Scandinavia. So fewer men had to adopt that sea life of a Viking warrior. They were able to stay home and do work there. And that ends our conversation about Vikings. And so, right now, I'm going to have you, as this video ends, go ahead to the email back where I send this to you, and you'll be able to download the work that goes along with this. So all three of you, CCP students, honor students, and advanced students, you all have a reading and questions. They vary in level and length, so make sure you're choosing the right one. And of course, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll see you in the next video.